So revenue streams in distribution. So these are, we're going to deal with three types of revenue streams. We have advertising, we have subscription, and we have transactional, right? So advertising, ad supported, we usually think about that traditional OTA, over the air, right? Broadcasters. We think about places like YouTube. We think about the basic Hulu, right, where there are advertisements scattered right throughout. And their primary revenue for that platform is being derived from the ad sales that they are making. We have subscription. Subscription, you guys are probably most familiar, right, with Netflix. It's a subscription video on demand service. You pay a monthly subscription and you forget about it, right? And that's how Netflix floats their $20 billion plus content budget. And then transactional, and transactional once again is what it sounds like. And this is typically if you go to say iTunes and you rent or you buy, right? That's a transaction, that's a point of sale, right? You buy a DVD or you go to your local Redbox kiosk. That is another form, right, of transactional revenue. So the two types of revenue that I'm looking at as a distributor, right, are going to be license fees and revenue sharing, right? So when you're looking, and this is one of the things when you're negotiating any kind of distribution agreement, you want to make sure that you thoroughly understand the level of reporting that the distributor is providing you. I'm not an evil distributor, but at the same time, I'm trying to keep as much money in the house for as long as possible. And granted, I won't be breaching my agreements, but if my filmmakers aren't chasing reports and they're not due, or I'm going to hang on to that money for as long as I can. But you want to know where that money is coming in, how that money is coming in, and then how ultimately you are recouping through it. So license fees are going to be block kind of fixed payments that I'm going to receive, say from Netflix. Netflix traditionally, as a distributor, when I am sub-licensing content to Netflix, is going to provide me, say, with $100,000, right, for a 2 or 3 year term. That will be paid out in one sum at the beginning, and then the remainder will be paid out on a quarterly basis over the balance of the term. And then revenue sharing or royalty, right? And this is a basic split. Right, so splits we see typically on transactional revenues, splits and royalties we see on advertising revenues that are being reported by platforms, right? Also things like cable VOD, DVD can be either royalty or can also be a license fee depending upon who you're going through. So I'm going to walk you through the different revenue streams, and these correspond to the windowing model. And we will talk about windowing, which is the sequence of releasing over time, right? But I'm going to kind of walk you through what the traditional timeline for release is and what those different revenues look like. So first and foremost, theatrical, the oldest kind of revenue stream available, right? The oldest way of distributing and exhibiting films. This is a form of transactional revenue. From your standpoint as a consumer, you're seeing it as a ticket, right? Some places are now innovating with subscription services in the wake of the debacle that was MoviePass. We already see subscription services, say in the UK, where theaters, you'll pay a monthly fee and then you will ultimately have the opportunity to see a set amount of films at your local theater. From a studio standpoint, when I say the studio, I'm talking about the distributor, right? And the studio can be MGM, Sony, well, MGM is not really, but I'm thinking about classical studios, but Sony, Universal, Warner's, etc., right? And it can also be a small indie, right? They're going to be the studio, right? And they're taking a revenue share or a split. Theatrical chains that we associate this, so AMC, ArcLight, Cinemark, a lot of these are unfortunately going to be, may very well be disappearing in the next couple of months, but also down to your local art house, right? Your local art house theater. They are all theatrical, right? Exploiting content theatrically. Transactional, and this is where we get into the muddled alphabet soup of distribution. This is typically a revenue sharing or a split model. It all comes under the giant blanket umbrella term video on demand, and that's what it sounds like, and you guys are more than familiar with it, right? But we've moved away from, say, appointment viewing to you, the consumer, being a curator of your own content. It is that you know, kind of, it's a trite expression, but the lean forward consumer experience. So video on demand encompasses multiple different channels of distribution, right? So we have EST, this stands for electronic sell-through. Examples of this would be Apple Prime, the Prime transactional offering. This also goes by the term DTO, which is download to own, right? We then have IVOD, Internet VOD, right? Internet video on demand, and this is typically a rental model, also referred to as DTR, right? Download to rent. We have CVOD, and that's cable VOD, and this is traditionally just a coaxial cable connection, right? We have satellite. This is your Dish and Direct TV, and then telcos, right? These are your IPTV fiber optic systems, right? You know, FiOS, Verizon, for example, and the telcos operate fiber optic systems. FiOS fiber optic system, right? So you can always remember that it is that IPTV. We have pay-per-view falling under that as well. After you've gone from theatrical to transactional, then you're moving into something we call your pay one window, and we'll talk about that window, but these are the next couple are the ones that are encompassed, right, in this kind of third moment, third stage in your windowing. Now, radically, this is all being overturned, right? And like once I said that, once again, the case studies at the end of this are going to show you how this system is being completely subverted. And driven, right, by the sudden radical shift, right, in behavior due to the COVID crisis. So SVOD, subscription video on demand. From a consumer standpoint, this is going to be a monthly subscription. From my standpoint as a studio, this is a license fee. Examples of this are going to be Disney Plus, Hulu Premium, Netflix, and there are a whole host of proprietary streaming services that are coming online right now. It is kind of the hot place to be, right? And this is where we are right now in terms of the streaming wars. These have driven up overhead deals for producers to just absolute insane amounts of money as services are trying to draw in subscribers and keep those subscribers in the ecosystem. And then we have ad-supported video on demand, right? So from a consumer standpoint, this is quote unquote free. Or it's a blended, right? It's a blended where you might be paying a modest subscription as well as seeing a some form of advertisement during your while you're watching the films. From the studio, from my standpoint, it's going to be either a license fee or royalty, and these are the Hulu Basic, Tubi, Pluto TV. Now, the reason why I'm talking about the consumer experience versus the studio experience, because if you've secured distribution through a distributor, right, you should be seeing these license fees. You should be seeing what the revenue splits are, right? And if you're negotiating a distribution agreement, have no fear, right, to ask that distributor what their splits are, because it can range, right? And the split is, not to get too lost in what the recoupment waterfall, right? So at the top is, you know, your kind of your DTC, right? The point of sale, right? Where the consumer is actually transacting. Below that, right? There's going to be collected revenue, right? That's coming in for them, their gross revenues, or I should say called the consumer gross. Now, those individual platforms, say like iTunes, have the right to take a split of that revenue, right? That's usually negotiated by that distributor, by that studio. So $100,000 comes in, say my split with iTunes is 30-70, they're going to take 30%, and then I'm going to realize $70,000 in collected revenue. From that, I'm going to deduct my fee, my P&A, my distribution expenses. I can even deduct interest on money that I've spent. And then after all that has been recouped by me, the distributor, then the remainder is going to flow through to you, the filmmaker. Now, obviously, if you're at the top, right, at that split, right, between the studio and the provider, if that split is say 50-50, right, that 100,000 suddenly dwindles to $50,000 of collected revenue by the distributor. And then I start taking every pound of flesh, right, until there's potentially little to nothing left over for you, the distributor. And I'm happy at any point to answer questions about the waterfall. So just to blaze through kind of the last couple revenue streams, television, right? Terrestrial broadcast, we call this OTA, right? This is typically ad supported. For your standpoint, it's free. Networks are staying afloat by selling ad time, right? We want to remember that they don't exist to produce shows, they exist to sell ads. Studios generate money through either a cash or barter system, right, where they're accepting a license fee per episode, right, or they're bartering to get a portion of the available airtime. Networks, right, ABC, CBS, the CW. Premium cable is exclusively subscription based. From your standpoint, it's your monthly cable subscription, it's your skinny bundle subscription. The network, the cable network, is receiving a fee, a monthly fee, which is a sub fee and what we call an affiliate fee, right? Which is a percentage of that cable package, that cable bill you're spending on a monthly basis. It's a small percentage of that, and of course they rack that up over whatever their subscriber base is. Studios will realize that once again as that affiliate fee. Basic cable is going to be a blend between affiliate fees and ad-supported ad sales. Now, I don't want to get too lost in this because I know we have a bit of limited time. DVD, Blu-ray, surprisingly, there is still a lot of business in physical and packaged goods, but the vast majority of this is coming from studio level content, right? The big box retailers aren't performing quite as well. They've reduced the amount of shelf space that they have dedicated to packaged goods. Major brick and mortar rental outlets have started to disappear, but there is still revenue. And if you're lucky, hopefully you'll get some form of DVD distribution. But if you're doing a self-releasing, you can go through Amazon and you can set up your own kind of self-publishing model where they will, why can't I remember the term right now? I got to remember it, sorry, lots of terms floating around in my head. But it's another viable way for you guys to get to your audience, right? And then non-theatrical, this is kind of the bucket for everything else that doesn't fall into those previous categories. And this is going to include your ships and airlines, hotels, motels, educational, and festival fees. And these are all additional ways for me as the distributor, as the studio, to monetize. Now, if you're going to be doing a self-releasing, then it's up to you. You cease to be a filmmaker and you become a distributor. So it will be incumbent upon you, right, to do all this solicitation, which is a reason why I would advocate most filmmakers to seek out a distributor, right? And then there's a whole bunch of boring stuff like accounts payable and accounts receivable and all that stuff that you'll be having to handle along with planning your marketing campaign and running your PR and running your social and all that stuff. So sometimes, depending on what your path is and where you're targeting and where you think your title is best suited, you're going to need to consider whether or not distribution through a traditional distributor makes the most sense. The other thing I would just, as a little kind of note, I can as a distributor, make money on festival fees. And this is money that's being paid to you to screen your film by a festival. So if you are placing your film with a festival, don't be afraid to ask them, right, for a festival fee, right? That's money that is due you. And sometimes they aren't upfront about telling you whether or not you are eligible for festival fees. So just a little kind of side note and a little way that you guys can start generating a bit of revenue.